I think it's time we set the record straight. Let's take a look, once and for all, into what Bambu Lab is actually collecting in the log files. Let's get into it. Hey guys, just a couple of things before we get started in this. Some things that you should know about this video. It is not monetized. There are no ads being run in it by us. There are no call to actions. There are no credits. This video is just the facts. This is exactly what we see inside of a Bambu log. And, well, we'll leave it up to you to come to your own conclusions about the information that we show you here today. On my screen here, you can see two folders. And, well, an entire thing of Notepad++ behind. The folder that we see here, off to the left, is an actual decrypted Bambu log file taken from my machine, running firmware 1.7.2 inside of X1+. The folder on the right is a dump that I made from the SD card itself by utilizing FTP or SSH. You can do it either way. From the Bambu, utilizing X1+. We can see that the dump itself contains much more information, but when we go to roughly the same folder, you can see that we have some similarities, we also have some differences. Do note, the gcode.tar, which has unarchived for video, that was done specifically so we don't have to unarchive this while we are recording. We'll start inside of CAM. CAM is kind of what you expect it to be. It is images that the camera has captured. Images including the calibration plates, light lines or LiDAR readings. The door is what you would expect. Is the door closed? Is it not sure? Or is it open? That is what is inside of the door.json file. We can see for this machine, those folders are empty. Failed test, these are either scans or photos from the bed itself. This is a aftermarket print bed that we are running on the machine that has some crap on it, just like some extra material from a previous print. It is showing that as a failed test. Inside of FLC, we see data regarding our last print that we ran. But let's jump inside of RAW first. Inside of the RAW, we have bin files, which is not something that I currently know how to view. You might have better luck there. But when we open them in Notepad++, it's not something that is readable at this time. We have our report, which includes the depth map for the last print that was ran, the scan for it, including green for go, red for no-go, and then the reference model for what it should look like. We have photos of a finished first layer, which is what it says it's supposed to be, but that is not what it is. In fact, we have a pretty significant failure, and another note, you can see partially outside of this machine. Something to note for those of you with X1 carbons. We can see there is our first layer. First layer looks good from here to me. We also have images from the LiDAR sensor itself. From there, we have some text files. Then we have plate1.json, which has everything in it. This includes, from what we can tell, locations, layer heights, just all the basic information for every single piece that is printed. We have blurred this out because there is so much proprietary information, one of it being the model name that we are printing, that we can't show it. But to give you an idea, this has the information data for where every single piece on your build plate is ran. Hindsight tells me that we should have exported a log file for this when we didn't have like 240 pieces on a build plate, but moving down, we have our handy eye capture, which includes the LiDAR lines with actual camera photos in them. We can see the line itself, the original, and then the adjusted. We can see some other LiDAR readings as well from the two laser lines that exist within the Bambu Lab X1 carbon. Down into SPG, we have an empty folder. We have negative. So these are what the machine feels that are negative. These are photos of your previous prints. This is user data. I know these are recent prints because, there it is. These are uploaded into a log file when you send Bambu a log. We have here another print on the machine as well. What we do notice is that the last file printed on the machine is not present in these photos. We don't see them in these photos either. Inside of the labels, we don't see anything in there either. And inside, they're just 84 what we believe are positions, but we're not certain how these relate to anything. We can also see a success image from a different print. Now, that is this file. That is this exact print. In fact, you can even see some of the layer artifacting that we see. Under test, we see the images that we actually used in our X1 Plus video, where we can see the machine looking at the fiducial marks. We can see other LiDAR readings. We can see photos. We can see the corner of the bed. Further down, we get into some files, with the first one being calib.yaml. This is where we see that the system utilizing the LiDAR and the camera itself is run through OpenCV. We have an entire file for the chamber light status. It's a chamber light status. We have another photo of lines from the laser. We have the laser state JSON file, which we can see here. There is the switch status, and then the temp. Temp just has one in it. This is what switch status has. Switch status tells us things about the print. Do you have the build plate marker detector enabled? I don't. But if you did, that would show true. We can see that sensitivity for halt print as well as print monitor, those are also logged in here as well. That finishes up the cam. Coredump, export, and Misc are all empty, and they are also empty when we dump the actual SD card. There is nothing in them. Inside of monitor, we have two files, sys_monitor.log, sys_monitor with a date code on it, .log.gz. We have unarchived it, and it is now up here. Both of these are present right here. In here, we can see the machine's kind of logging itself. Things like temperature, the load averages, we can see CPU cycles, and other various information about the machine. This log is incredibly long. We see that it is over 100,000 lines deep. There is a fair bit of data that is here. You are welcome to scroll through it and look if you would like when you get access, which we are expecting. If it is not already out as of posting this video, it will be out quite soon. So keep an eye out, because as of right now, you need SSH access or you need X1 Plus to get this kind of data. We can see some referencing to these CMN files. Note that, because that will be somewhat useful later on. In the sys_monitor with the date code attached to it, something to note as well, you can see that the date code says sometime in 2023. My machine does not know what day it is. It has never been connected to the internet since it got into our possession, and therefore it has no clue. We have seen the date jump around quite a bit. So when you see date codes mentioned in here, other than utilizing them to sort, do not look at them as an actual representation of date. Because I will tell you, this machine, we did not even look at until after this date code. Just something to note. We do not believe that the date codes here are accurate. In looking at these two files, we see a lot of similarities, but also some differences. Inside of this file, we see, again, very similar information. We see some things regarding memory and processes that are running. When we scroll down a bit, we can see here, with the Linux version, the fact that it is running X1 Plus, and a date code that would check out. We can see referencing to Android, we can see referencing Linux, and we can also see that X1 Plus boot is true. This is effectively, from what we can tell, reading off all the information about the machine. And then it goes back to being very similar to the sys_monitor.log. Here under the Wi-Fi, we can see driver names, driver numbers, as well as MAC addresses. Inside of print, we have print log files. These, from what we can tell, are of recent prints that you did. Something to note: your G-code is always renamed to plate_1. These are different files. In fact, the logs are very different for them too. However, the G-code file is always the same. These are just the 3 most recent ones that are present inside of my log file. Inside of Recorder, we see these CMN files again. We have a folder, and inside of it is recorder.uconf. Inside of it, we have commands regarding whether or not things are uploaded, and if they are, where are they being uploaded. I would like to remind everybody that my machine has been offline. I have not allowed it to do anything. I have opted out of the user experience improvement program that Bambu has when you first start up the machine. And as we can see, it is wanting to upload information titled CMN to the cloud. And we can see here that the MC, TH, and AMS, main controller, toolhead, AMS. But we can see that it is at least authorized to upload to the cloud. Further through, we have these CMN files. Unfortunately, looking at the bin, there's, well, a lot of null, likely needing a more specific program to review it. The CMN files can be unzipped or unarchived, and there is a BAT file, Windows batch file, that will do that for you. Do note, these are relatively large .bin files that do take some time to unzip if that's something that you want. However, it is present should you desire. Inside of Syslog, we have a syslog with the date code .log.gz. We've already unarchived that for you, and here are its contents. Because my machine is offline, we see a lot more of these error messages or interfaces down messages that occur here. We can see, in fact, it is very much a repeated process and repeated codes. We're also able to see that it is tracking temperature and humidity inside of the AMS as well. As you will note, your AMS can actually determine whether or not it is damp inside of it and can actually warn you to replace the silica gel as a desiccant solution. The machine is detecting actual humidity percentages as well as temperatures. And we can see that it assigns a humidity index based on humidity percentage. If we scroll through this, we see that there is roughly 4 hours of data that is stored within the syslog. Inside of tools, we once again have the log unzip bat file. Don't run that unless you have some time. Inside of tracker, we see track_log4. This file contains information, including remote URLs to an Amazon AWS server that the machine is attempting to make contact to. The information that it is sending or receiving, based upon the link that we can see here, is a 3MF file. I will once again remind individuals that are watching that my machine has remained in my possession 100% offline. The machine went through 3 factory resets when it came into our possession. Again, we are unfortunately unaware regarding the date code. And we are also aware that that firmware version is not accurate. That is, however, the latest firmware on the machine itself. However, X1 Plus allows it to boot into 1.7.2. The machine's factory firmware is 1.4.1. And so because of the date code issue, we are unable to confirm when this is actually from. Unfortunately, when we click these links, they expire. They have a very quick expiring key. It appears to be roughly 24 hours. And this has been something that has been brought to Bambu's attention in the past. We will link below a GitHub bug that was not only reported, but also apparently fixed. This machine is running what should be the post-bug patch, which will actually include the names of the files that you printed. This is a name of a file that I printed. We have obscured it because it's our company information. Thankfully, no NDAs on it, But if we were to upload this information based on the file names alone, there is information being provided. Moving past tracker, the upload folder is empty for both the dumped files as well as the decrypted log file. Further down, we get into specific logs, starting with camera_log. This is what is present within that log. Below that, we have camera_raw, which we can see here. We have execution.log, which interestingly, we can see that we have a big gap between 0405 and 0919. It is my understanding that the last time this machine was in the possession of the previous owner was 0405. I did not open that machine until 8/18. And while the date codes are wrong, I did do multiple factory resets to ensure that if there was any information from the previous owner, that it would not be present. Unfortunately, it does not appear the factory resets actually remove that kind of information. Beyond execution.log, we have flc_encrypto.log. This is including the photos that are to be encrypted to go inside of the log file. We can see beyond the photos themselves other things that are included with it, as well as a success for the completion, the flc_encrypto.log. And I will point out, this is my machine's serial number. Below flc_encrypto.log, we have gcode.tar.gz. I will remind people that according to Bambu Lab, your G-code, your 3MF data, is not uploaded in a log file. Let's look inside of this. It is once again an archive, a couple of folders, and a .gcode file. We all know what this is. Inside of model settings.config, we can see the settings itself that are set for the model. We have picture 1 here, which does show the base of the models that were printed. We are not sure what that is for. The next PNG on here is a photo of what was printed. This is always the last file. This will always update. It was not named plate 1. We have a specific name for this file before we printed it. It was renamed inside of the log file. This is a picture of what should have been printed. This is the G-code for what was printed, and we can see various images as well as a top photo for what those parts look like. Inside of the plate1.gcode.md5, we have a character string. Plate1 JSON has literally every single part in the build with its location. Unfortunately, due to the name of the file, we have to obscure all of this information. In project settings.config, we have, yes, your slicer settings. These are all the settings that you have inside of your slicer. And for us in this case, we used Orca Slicer. We also have the sliceinfo.config, which includes the names of every single part that was on your build plate and whether or not it was skipped, its identifying ID number, the color, the material, how many grams were used, and how many meters of filament were used. Interestingly, we can see that the Bambu Lab client version shows 1.07.07.89. I believe we were using likely 1.9 at that time for Orca Slicer, but it might have been in the 1.8s. It was not 1.07 for sure. Inside of the rels folder, we have information. Unfortunately, though, neither of those links do function. Inside of the cut information.xml, just goes through every single object ID that is present on the build plate. Moving down below the gcode.tar.gz, we move into log_export.log. Here we can see a relatively similar file to the flc_encrypto. We can see specifically with the user data and then metadata, the actual information that is being collected. We have some more of those CMN files, of course. Below that is another unzip for the log. We have the save time zone log. It's exactly what you expect. It's just a time zone thing. But unfortunately, while it does know my time zone, nothing else in terms of the time and date codes are correct. We then have the SPG underscore encrypto.log. We can see here information regarding the negative photos that are being uploaded inside of that specific part of the log file. Below that, we have the SSH config, which in this case is set to auto, and then it says do nothing, drop error SSHD already stopped. Do note that this will likely be different if you do have connections to the outside world. Under that, we have syslog.log. That is quite a bit of information. We can see here again date codes that aren't right. This machine was in a box August 4th. It was not opened. It was not powered on. This was not a functioning machine at this time. What we can also see is the SD card history, as well as the preset history. Models that you have printed both on the machine and on the SD card as well. Now, while these are plain text, that information is included within your log file. We can also see model names that occur further down. Models from your SD card that are stored inside of this machine. We can see some interesting things in here as well. Like if we search for G-code, we not only find models with .G-code, but we see some kind of commands here that says if the laser check does not pass, do not run the G-code file command. Moving down from the syslog, the last thing inside of the Bambu lab log file is zip underscore core dash BBL underscore screen with what we believe is a date code. Unfortunately, that file is not something that we have had success reading. As you can see, there's nothing here that we can understand. And that's it. That is what we see within the Bambu log file. We have shown you the facts, given minimal opinions where we could, and I've done my best to provide you with just the facts and only the facts. We urge you, the viewer, to access this information yourself when you have the ability to. We urge you to go through, look for yourself, and see what you find. What I know is that the log file that you saw was decrypted in the middle of January 2024. So that should give you an idea of timeline. So where does this leave us? I think each individual person, be it a consumer, a business, or otherwise, needs to understand what they are uploading, how they are uploading it, and what level of concern that has for them. But I hope that this has assisted in setting the record straight.